Hi everyone, and thanks for checking out this ranking video. So we've reached the end of the month, so it's time to do the ranking video for my current horror franchise that I've been taking a look at this month, and that's the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. So all nine films. I have individual reviews up on my channel if you want to check them out, where I talk about each one more extensively and why I rated it where I did. Those should be up on my channel. But this is the video where we rank from my least favorite or worst to best, if you will. I prefer least favorite to favorite because everybody has different tastes. Everybody likes different movies. This is just my opinion. This is just my ranking. So, if one of my movies that's towards the backside is your favorite, that's great, and vice versa. If one that I have at the top is not your favorite, that's cool too. That's what it's all about. So yeah, let's just go ahead and get to start. I'm not going to talk too much about the films. I'll give a few thoughts about each one as I go through them. But like I said, the extensive review of the individual films is up on my channel, so check those out. But and looking at this franchise overall, um, there's a lot of highs, definitely some lows. Um, I enjoy most of the films. There's really only one that I can't stand. That's one despicable entry, in my opinion. Um, Eight of the nine films are at least watchable and good enough for what they are for me. Um, so yeah, that's kind of how I view the franchise. Obviously, Freddy went from being really scary and dark to going into more humor to becoming a full blown clown at one point to going back to being scary to being kind of scary and funny. So he's kind of run the gamut here. But for the most part, um, the Freddy character is obviously an iconic character, and he carries this franchise. Obviously, he's the one constant in all nine films. So let's just go ahead and get started here. So probably no surprise to anyone if you've watched my reviews. Coming in last place for me, number nine, is the one entry that I really can't stand and hope I don't have to watch again. And that, of course, is the Oscar worthy. Just kidding. The sixth film in the franchise, Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare. Yeah, I don't like anything about this movie, from its tone to its clownish Looney Tunes feel to Freddy's makeup to Freddy himself, the acting, the directing, the story. Everything is just it's just such a lazy, terrible effort done in this movie, and this is one I'll never reach for this movie if I'm in the mood for a Nightmare on Elm Street movie or a horror movie. In fact, if I'm watching a Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, I'd probably skip this one because I really wouldn't miss much in terms of the storyline. So, yeah, if you like this movie more than I do, that's great. I can't stand it. I'll be honest with you. So, that's my least favorite, the one despicable film that I really just can't get behind in this franchise. So, yeah. Coming in next, in eighth place, I think I'm going to go with the Nightmare on Elm Street remake from 2010. Now, in my review, I said it was my first time watching the movie, and I didn't think it was. I didn't think it was awful, not as bad as everybody's been saying it is for 10 years, or most people, I should say. But it is your quintessential 2000s jump scare horror movie where they basically inserted Freddy in a bad version of Nancy as far as the main characters in my opinion. Jackie Earl Haley is good as Freddy. He's no Robert Englund. The makeup is fine. He pulls off the character well. But the other characters, other than the friend Chris, played by Katie Cassidy, she's really the only decent one. The rest of the characters are not good. They're badly acted. But they did try some different things here. They took some different routes. Some of it worked, most of it didn't. But yeah, I enjoy this movie well enough. I could watch it. But yeah, I can't really say I like it enough to have it any higher on this list either. So that's my number eight. Coming in at number seven, this is the next three were kind of hard and they're kind of interchangeable to me. But as of today, this is kind of how I have them. Um, So at number seven, I'm going to go with A Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child. Now, I see a lot of people has this actually as their worst, even behind Freddy's Dead, which I don't understand that, but okay, everybody's entitled to their opinion. It's not a great movie. It got hacked. It got hacked to shreds by the MPAA. But like I said, I think I like it because it's kind of a sequel to number four, which is a sequel to number three. Or I should say, yeah, three through five are kind of they're kind of a nice bridge between the three films. This is definitely the least of them as far as good quality, but again, some of that I blame on the MPAA. I like Lisa Wilcox. She's a good character. Dan has a really cool death. Freddy's more of a clown in this movie. His makeup has gone to hell. Um, but I like the kid that plays Jacob. He's really creepy. I don't know. It just still has enough of a feel for me to be able to put it on and watch it. But it does definitely have its issues and its problems. I don't hate it as much as some people that find it boring. I don't find it boring. I recognize all the flaws that it has, which are many. But yeah, Nightmare on Elm Street 5, that's my number seven. Coming in at number six is going to be Freddy versus Jason from 2003, the crossover film. Yeah, this is a fun watch. I mean, again, it has issues with it, mainly the characters aside from Freddy and Jason. Uh, my biggest my biggest problem with the movie though is if you watch my review is that Kane Hodder's not Jason. That really just bugs me because Ken Kurzener is big and he fits the mask, but he doesn't really fit the role. If you know what I'm saying, he doesn't have the personality that Kane Hodder brought to the mannerisms and the responses that Kane Hodder brought to the character of Jason. Like I said, the human characters I really don't like in this movie. Really, none of them. Um, so when they're on screen, I kind of roll my eyes. But the Freddy and Jason fight towards the end, it's pretty action packed and it's a well directed film. So yeah, it's a fun watch. It's a good watch to watch with friends or other people. Just kind of a fun horror film. And Freddy's really good again in this movie with Robert Englund being both kind of funny but also scary and menacing. So that's my number six, Freddy versus Jason. Um, my number five, I'm going to go with A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4, The Dream Master. Um, yeah, this is where Freddy started to dip more into the comedy. Wasn't really scary anymore. Um, but this film has a lot of good visuals in it. Rennie Harlan brought a new vision to the series. Not necessarily a scary vision, but he brought in some new ideas and some new visions. Like I said, visually, it's really cool. We got a good main character of Alice, who's played by Lisa Wilcox, who has I think she might have the best character arc in this franchise, honestly, in this movie, because she starts out as very shy and awkward, then she becomes a really strong, confident final girl at the end, and we get to see that transformation throughout the film as she takes on the powers of her friends as they die, the qualities of her friends. Um, you know, this is the one where the dog pisses fire to bring Freddy back, which is silly, and there's a lot of silly in this movie, but there's a lot of great scenes at the Ialto, the movie theater, the repeating loop scene is really cool. You know, it's a really mixed bag. I mean, there's like every other scene is good, and then every other scene is bad. Obviously, the iconic line, "How is this for a wet dream?" Um, but I don't know. I enjoy this movie well enough, even though it's the start. It's kind of the beginning of the end of Freddy in the first six films, anyway. As far as going from scary to being comedian, the scale's definitely tipped in this. Starting with this movie, but of the sillier comedic ones, I think this is the best one of that bunch. So that's my number five, I guess. Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master. So now we're getting into my top four. And that would be A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddy's Revenge. So this is a film that had a lot of hate the first 20 years or so that it was out, and I think it's gained more of a popular status in the last 10 or so years. I think people have taken another look at it. What I like about this film is it's dark. I mean, it's kind of, in that regard, it's in the vein of the first film. Freddy's dark. I don't think he delivers any one-liners or any comedy in this movie. Um, I really like Robert Englund in this movie. I'm glad that they didn't go with the stunt man like they were originally going to. That would have been bad. The movie breaks rules. It has issues like a lot of these movies do. Excuse me. Mark Patton's performance as Jesse, I actually like. I know it's kind of a tipping point for a lot of people. Some people really like it. Some people really don't. I thought he did a really good job. I like the character of is it Lisa? I think, yeah, played by Kim Myers. Robert Russler is sort of a side character, is pretty good. I don't know. I don't mind the characters in this movie as much. Like I said, it's still got that dark tone, even though they changed. It's more of a possession nightmare movie than a invading the dreams. But I really like the school bus scenes at both the beginning and the end of the film. Yeah, this is of all the ones that have issues, that have problems. This is my favorite. I think because of the darkness and the horror aspect that's still in this one. So that'd be my number four, Freddy's Revenge. So now we get into my top three, and the way I kind of view this series, if you take a look at the first six films, one through three, I feel like are dark um, horror movies. Four through six become more comedic horror comedies. Um, as far as my ranking goes, like the way I break it down is other than number nine, which I really can't stand, Freddy's Dead. Four through eight, I like well enough. They're good enough of what I just went through, four through eight, that I can watch, even though I do recognize they have problems, but they're enjoyable enough for what they are. But these top three to me are horror classics, without a doubt. And so coming in at number three, and this was actually hard, these are interchangeable. Depending on the day of the week, particularly the top two, but even this third one I'm going to talk about here, and that is Wes Craven's New Nightmare from 1994. This is a movie I like more each time I watch it. It's just so clever, so creative. Wes Craven puts his stamp on this franchise the way he should have, especially after Freddy's dead. I mean, to me, this is really the end of the Nightmare on Elm Street series, not just because it actually was, as far as the box set, it is the seventh and final film. I know Freddy versus Jason and the remake are there, but that's a crossover and a remake. So as far as the original series, this was a good way to go out, much better than really than five and six for sure, and maybe even four. Freddy's dark. He looks different. He's sleek. He's got more of a German look, but still really effective. Still really well played by Robert Englund. And actually, Robert Englund, the fact that he could go from what he was in '91's Freddy's Dead, which was just a total clown and Looney Tune, to being really dark and menacing again in this movie is a tribute to him as this character. I mean, he gets it. When the director tells him what they want out of the character, he knows how to go there, whether it's humor or horror. And Heather Langenkamp, this might be her best performance in any movie I've seen her in. I just love everything about it. The Hollywood aspect from how everybody's life from the original film has changed because of the success of these movies. To Freddy being a demon coming into the real world. I mean, it was so far ahead of its time. I think that's why, well, two reasons why it didn't do as well at the theater. One was because Freddy's Dead just came out a few years before and people didn't want to be duped again. But also, I think that this film was a little too clever for 1994. I think if it would have came out 5 years later, it would have done a lot better. But it was critically reviewed well, and I can see why. I love this movie. I could put it on any time. Very high rewatchable factor. Um, so these top two are, like I said, tomorrow you could ask me and they'll be the opposite way. But right now, today, for number two, I'm going to go ahead and go with a lot of people's number one, and for good reason. And that's A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, The Dream Warriors. This might be the tightest movie in terms of beginning to end story. You got great characters, probably the best characters in the franchise. You got a great Freddy. Um, he starts the one-liners a little bit in some of the comedy, but it's not too much yet. It's not overdone. It's just the right amount, and he's still really scary in this movie. Um, yeah, it's kind of the perfect blend. They add some more backstory to Freddy that we didn't know in the first movie, but they don't take anything away from the first movie, which is why I think this might be the best horror sequel in any of the major horror franchises. Anyway, there's some other contenders, but to me, this is more of a direct sequel from the original Nightmare on Elm Street. Part two is sort of, it's a good nightmare film if you take it out, but really this is more of a direct sequel to the original to me, the third one. And yeah, I just, what can you say? I love it. I love the characters, I love the directing, I love the story, I love Freddy, the final confrontation. It's just, there's such high stakes in this movie. You feel it in the third act, from the junkyard to the survivors that are left at the very end. You just don't know what's going to happen. And yeah, it's awesome. I can see why so many people have this as their favorite. Um, and like I said, tomorrow it might be for me. But today it's my number two, and just a fantastic horror sequel, one of the best ever. But number one today for me has to be one of the most classic and iconic films, not just horror films, but films of all time that introduced one of the most iconic and well known worldwide characters of all time, Freddy Krueger. And that's, of course, the original Nightmare on Elm Street from 1984 by Wes Craven, starring Robert Englund as Freddy, Heather Langenkamp, Johnny Depp before he became a big star. Um, John Saxon, who's wonderful in all the movies he's in. This film, it's so claustrophobic, it's so good, so scary. The definition of a horror movie. Wes Craven knew what he wanted, and he delivered big time in this movie. Um, yeah, I just can't praise it enough. This just a fantastic horror movie again that I could watch anytime, put on anytime. Um, So many classic lines and scenes. Tina being dragged across the ceiling. Um, Nancy at the end fighting for her life against Freddy, bringing him out, trying to get her dad and all the adults to believe what's going on. It's just Freddy scraping his gloves in the boiler room. I mean, it's just so iconic, so iconic. Freddy coming through the phone. I could go on, but I'm not going to. Just watch my review. But yeah, that's my number one, the original Nightmare on Elm Street from 1984. So that's my ranking of this franchise. Again, this is a great franchise. Only one despicable movie that I can't stand. The other eight movies, four through eight, are good enough for what they are. They've got problems. One through three, all time horror classics, interchangeable depending on the day for me. Go ahead and tell me your thoughts about this franchise, guys. Go ahead and give me your ranking down below in the comments. Let me know if you think I'm way off base, or just keep it civil. But go ahead and like this video, subscribe to my channel. Now I'll give the big announcement for the next month, the month of August. So I've done Child's Play, I've done Nightmare on Elm Street, so you probably have a somewhat idea what's coming next for the month of August. If you look at the second Friday, the date of the second Friday in the month of August 2021, you'll probably know that I'm going to be doing the Friday the 13th franchise for the month of August, reviewing all 12 films, and then at the end of August, like I did here, ranking all 12 films from my least favorite to my favorite. So make sure to subscribe to my channel, like my videos to stay tuned for those movie reviews and ranking, as well as other movie reviews that I have coming up. So thank you for watching this video. Have a great day. Bye.